welcome. We're back in the Hustle Over Everything podcast. I'm Alex,
I'm your man, Owen Osinde.
and this, once again, is the Hustle Over Everything podcast, where we usually cover entrepreneurship, people on the startup grind, working towards a better future. But today we have a different show. Today we're covering the current events. We're covering the racism in America, in Canada, worldwide, but we're focusing on America for this specific pod, and we're discussing what's been going on and the history behind it, and where we can move forward from here. So things we're going to be covering in this pod include George Floyd, the protests and the riots, police brutality, the history of it, the modern day today, white privilege, and Black mobility, and where you can fit in along these lines. And by no means are we saying we have the answers. We're not by any means the go-to guys for all social issues, but right now what we're trying to do is have a dialogue. On Facebook, actually, I posted a question of what would you want to know to all of our white counterparts, and we got some interesting questions. And later in the pod, we're going to talk to them as well, and just speak to what they have to say and questions they have. So it's going to be an interesting pod. Grab a drink, buckle up. we're
Grab
gonna,
a snack.
yeah, grab a
snack.
snack, grab a beverage, and yeah, just buckle up and let's dive right in. So
yeah, man. Even before, I know we're covering North America, but overall too, we also know there's a lot of Black people over the world, especially in Europe, places like France. A lot of people showing solidarity. And although we're covering what we know here in North America, but we're also covering just the Black experience as well too, for Black men and women and little boys and girls all over the world who go through these things that we face here in North America.
Agreed. The post-colonialism and slavery happened globally, so there's a mutual experience that happens worldwide that we're going to be touching on.
Absolutely, Al.
So if you're living under a rock, the George Floyd murder happened, and it's one of the most saddest events that's happened in I think our lifetime. There's been other murders that's been captured on camera, but this one specifically hits home. We talked about it before. It's this really gut-wrenching, heavy event to deal with. What was your first reaction when you saw this, Owen?
First of all, I just want to send my prayers and condolences to George Floyd's family, his brothers, sisters, his kids, and everybody who has to endure this pain on a different level than we do. So I just want to first address that. But, when this happened, when I saw the video, it was so hard for me to watch the video just because it's like, this is happening again. This is happening again, broad daylight. Police are looking at the camera. They're seeing what's going on, and they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit that they are murdering this guy. And you have the 3 other officers just watching as this man is pleading for his life, saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. We've heard that so many times with other Black men who faced, murder, who faced death because police have murdered them. George Floyd is calling for his mom at his last moments, mom, help me. He's like, I can't breathe. And the cop just has his 220-pound body on his neck. It was so sad, man. I remember the day it happened, I was just distraught. The whole day, I could not move from it. I was just glued on social media. I was glued on CNN. I was with my mom. I was with my sisters. And I was heartbroken. And there's something about this murder that really hit home and it really broke the straw for everybody all over the world. You know, we've seen this over and over where police murder Black men and women. It's caught on camera, it's televised, it's protested, and the police walk away with no repercussions at all. No jail time, no charges, just another day on their job, just a slap on the wrist and business as usual for them. And it's always been business as usual for them. But this George Floyd murder just, it made me feel powerless, Al. You know, that's how I felt. Powerless, hopeless, searching for answers. And I was just in tears. And I remember calling you. I was just like, I couldn't work. I was like, man, I gotta call all my friends because this is just, this kills. And it's so hard to work. It's hard to do anything. You need a day off. You need days off just to think about it. So this past week has just been one of those days where I can't sleep because I'm on my phone. At the same time, I need to stay away from my phone because it's mentally heavy. And man, it was just a very hopeless feeling. You know, I'm just like, I live in this black skin and I'm never gonna be able be in any other color. And this is the reality I have to deal with. And because also George Floyd could have been me, could have been you, right? No matter who we are, no matter what we do, how successful you are, even with the whole Christian Cooper, I believe that
Amy Cooper.
Amy Cooper and
Yeah.
the man who had who was bird watching,
Hmm.
he was a Harvard graduate, very accomplished, and this guy was going to be dehumanized by police, and that's what Amy Cooper was doing. So imagine that you've worked your whole life to be at this position where you're respected, but the cops are just going to see you as another black body that's a threat to them, and that's what kills. So that's how I felt, man. And I know you have a lot to feel as well too. So like, I'm curious to know how you felt when you found out the news, bro.
Man, it was a rush of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry. I was sad. Um, I felt like a cup overflowing, man, for real. When he called for his mom, that really hit home, man. Like I burst out into tears.
Mm-hmm.
What also got me again, was the witness testimony on CNN. Hearing his recall of what happened and hearing how he warned the cop that he's actually killing him. His You can see him passing out. You can see the life leave him. And hear him call out for his mom. Then to hear that his mom passed sometime before on the exact same day. Oof, man, that ripped me apart. It ripped me apart. Ripped me apart. And it was more like uh, insult to injury because you've seen it so much before. It wasn't a fresh feeling. It was the fact that this is happening again. It made you feel really helpless. Made me feel really helpless. So yeah, I was just angry. I wanted to throw shit. I wanted to punch shit, and it was a feeling of all this rage and nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I started just crying my eyes out, man. It was tough, without a doubt.
Yeah. And this has happened for so many years, so many people. I mean, I can just, read off a list of names that who have been individuals who have died because they've been murdered by police. So many cases we've protested, we've yelled, we've screamed, we've been told, can you protest a different way that is more peaceful? We've done that, no answers. We have showed our rage of emotions. Nothing happens. Colin Kaepernick, which we're also going to talk about soon, took a knee because he just felt like police brutality is a major thing in America and people need to talk about it and do something about it. But people who've happened in the past close to 15 years, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, which happened this year, Freddie Gray, Sam Dubose, Terrence Crutcher, Alton Sterling, Jamar Clark, William Chapman, Walter Scott, Eric Harris, Tamir Rice, Akai Gurley, Michael Brown, and the late George Floyd, who just passed away last week from being murdered by Derek Chauvin, who was one of the cops who were there with the three other cops who were part of this, and they watched it happen. And yeah, so this isn't anything new. This isn't anything new that we're experiencing. It's something that's happened for decades, and Black people still continue to live through it, still continue to feel the pain year after year, and no justice is being served. So, just to really talk about the whole story again, George Floyd was stopped by police because someone called the cops on him because they said he used a fake $20 bill, a counterfeit $20 bill. The cops showed up, they pulled him out of his vehicle, they dragged him out. They put, if you watch the different angles of the camera, they dragged him in the back of the police cruiser. You can see Derek Chauvin beating him up. You can see his wrists moving in an aggressive manner, and you can just tell there's violence going on in the car, even though you can't really see what's going on, but you know what's going on. He's pulled, and now you're looking at the south side of the street, and you have George Floyd on his back with his wrists in handcuffs. He's facing down, and George Floyd has prior medical issues that he's been facing for a while now. And this is what's going on. So the police is on him. Derek Chauvin has his knee on his neck, just pressing down on him. And he doesn't seem to care at all that he's killing a man. And you have three other police officers who are watching this. And as Derek is on his neck, you have two other officers holding him down as if he's going to move when he's in handcuffs and you're on top of him. Like, that is what we're talking about. That is the brutality that Black people are talking about, that this needs to end. So that's what happened. So shortly after that, news breaks out and protesters come out, and the aftermath that just went on from this story coming out and people and the video coming out is where we stand at today. And we're talking about the protests, right? The protests.
But one thing we need to mention is that the cops have finally been charged.
Yeah, that's the thing. Great point, man. Like, Derek Chauvin got charged with third-degree murder, third-degree murder out of everything, and the three other cops were still waiting on a verdict, I believe, on how to proceed with those other three individuals. So,
yeah, it's actually been moved up to second-degree murder. Yeah, and I believe, it's been raised to second-degree murder, and the other officers have been charged. No, I forget. Let's see.
Yeah, but it's just gruesome watching that on camera. I mean, if you watch that, I don't know how you can even watch that over and over and over. I mean, I just watched it like about 3 times, and every time I see it come up, I just look away. Yeah, it's honestly, it's disgusting. But as Alex is bringing up, the
charge with manslaughter.
The charge with manslaughter, right? Yeah. But so after this, all hell breaks loose, and protesters come out protesting this whole murder that just happened. After that, you see a lot of riots happening. Not riots, but a lot of looting going on. Buildings are being burned down. I mean, it was just crazy how things escalated so quick, from people protesting to buildings being burned down, looting going on in Minnesota. It was just crazy just watching that, just in a matter of days. Like, the second day that whole thing happened.
Yeah. Minnesota was a sleeping lion,
Minnesota out of all places, man. Well, yeah, man. Pardon?
Did you see it coming?
I didn't see it coming at all. I didn't see. This really hit hard for a lot of people. Like, everybody, like, this was just the catalyst for police brutality, where people are actually like, you know what? this needs to change. And that's why you can actually see social media reacting the way it's reacting. A lot of people are fed up, and you can see a lot of white people and other people of different races joining forces with us to really bring this thing down, bring down the whole systematic racism, inequality, and actually fight for justice, because they see that, wow, all these things about Black Lives Matter you guys have been talking about for years, this is what you're talking about. And people are starting to get it, but then you still have those all lives matter people who still think when you say Black Lives Matter, they still come back as about, oh, all lives matter. And get out of here. You know?
Yeah. So let's address that. A lot of times we there when someone says Black Lives Matter, they're met with all lives matter. Black Lives Matter isn't saying Black Lives Matter more. It's saying Black Lives Matter too. It's very simple. What keeps getting misconstrued with people, and it's insane that it's still not being.
They don't grasp the concept.
Is that Black Lives Matter too? TOO.
Yeah.
That just like a white person, an Asian person, or any other person in society, Black lives need to be treated fairly when it comes to the treatment by police officers. When it comes to treatment in society, Black lives need to matter. Where people get misconstrued is that thinking that it's a matter more, and that's not the case. It's not a matter of more. It's mattering on an equal playing field. So first, for the white listeners asking, that's one of the questions that we've actually gotten. Just to nip it in the butt real quick. That is the, I guess, quick definition of why we say Black Lives Matter. It's not a more, it's a two.
It's the best example I can give you. It's if you look at a neighborhood and you see a house is burning, right? You see a house is burning, and what we're saying is like, okay, this house is, I know your house matters, but my house is burning right now. We're going to take care of this right now, right? Doesn't mean like we don't care about all your other homes. There's something, but this is the more pressing issue right now. So let's take care of it. Of course, your house matters. But if my house keeps burning all the time and you don't see that as a problem, then how are you not seeing that as a problem? Like, let's take the flames down for my house so people don't keep dying in this home. Let's fix the issue in this thing. It doesn't mean like your house doesn't matter. So people just need to understand that. It's not about, we don't care about white lives. Trust me, I have white friends, you have white friends, and their lives matter. But if Black people keep getting treated like roadkill by police, that's what you need to see the issue with Black Lives Matter. Because when a Black life gets taken away, it never gets treated with the same what's the word I'm looking for?
Level of respect.
Exactly, level of respect. It just gets treated as if it's tossed down. Oh, you killed a Black person. Oh, don't worry about it. It's just another Black person. Like, it doesn't matter. They see it as a good thing. It's like, oh, less Black people to deal with, because there's a lot of racism that goes on.
Yeah. There's a notion that gets put forth of a Black life can be meant less if they sold drugs in the past, if they committed some type of crime in the past. That means that they should be subject to no due process, and if their life gets lost, then it's a casualty. Like, it's just a part of the process.
It's part of the process.
And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Everybody deserves due process, and that's one of the main issues we see not being respected in our society. Whether it be Canada or America. So
yeah, people die every single day, but whenever it's a Black man or woman who's been killed by police, they somehow bring cases from ages ago. Oh, he used to sell weed, or he was a weed smoker in high school. And you're just painted as if like you're this thug, this person who just did a lot of bad things. So him dying, it's less of these type of people. It's less of you type of people on the streets that we got to deal with. And that makes the white populace feel better. Like, oh, okay, well, you know, he was a bad guy. He did a lot of bad things. So if he's dead, that's actually good. But that's what the media does. They paint these stories and they make them look as if that if a black person dies, they somehow bring these, as I said, these obscure cases which have no relevancy to their actual death to really justify why the police did that course of action. So one case is Trayvon Martin, um, just because he was he what just I don't want to get my information wrong, but how old was he when he got murdered by George Zimmerman? Was he like around 15, 14?
A teenager.
Around
It
as
was
a
a teenager,
teenager,
yeah.
just a teenager, right? And he got murdered by George Zimmerman, and they somehow bring up these
Stand your ground laws.
exactly
Yeah.
on a teenager. Like, how's that kid a threat to you?
You
Oh,
know,
I man.
was so significant about that case was, if a black life was, actually, let me rephrase that. If a white life was on a gun and someone was to give you that gun and say, hey, this is what uh, this is what I'm giving you. There's a white life on this gun. Do it with it as you will. That person will most likely throw away that gun and say, I don't want nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
The George Zimmerman gun that was used to shoot Trayvon Martin was auctioned for $250,000, which is absurd. It goes to show you the difference. There's something like around trophying of killing a black man, which is insane. Just really trying to understand that that's such a trauma causing stat to think about.
Mm-hmm.
To realize that something that someone uses to kill you can become a trophy is insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So let's get into police brutality, man.
I
Not
mean,
police brutality, the protests and riots.
but before that, I just want to make one thing. I'll
Yeah.
make another point before we move on out. But
Okay.
it's like when a white person who, how we just painted as these animals on by the media, you see all these cases of white people who go shoot up churches, mosques, and they don't get killed by these cops, right? You look at Dylan Roof, he goes and murders a whole church, and somehow the cops bring him out alive. They tie him, they handcuff him, then they give him water. And then what does the news say? Like, oh, he's just a kid with mental illness. He didn't really have any bad problems. He just had a bad time and he decided to take it out on people. And that's all we hear about it. That's all we hear about this white face that killed people. And he doesn't really get put on as a thug. It's something that has to do with like a mental problem. And that's the shit I'm tired of, is when a white person does a crime or who does something so bad, who murders people, they get treated as if this is just part of like a mental issue. It's not like a like them as like a white person. Like that's the privilege that they get. And you look at like their headshots, their mugshots, sorry, and it's just like a human, right? They show him like in with their family and everything. And I remember that one rape story about that kid in Stanford up in California. He raped a girl behind the dumpster, and I think his dad was up there in power. Like he had some role in society, like a powerful position,
Lawyer, I believe.
a lawyer,
Yeah.
right? And then he gets a couple of months of community service. That was like his slap on the wrist type of thing. That's the slap on the wrist punishment he gets. He doesn't even face any punishment at all, like a year, 2 years in jail. And I watched that, and like the picture they used to really describe this guy is just like they're showing him in his Stanford swimming gear.
Brock Turner was his name.
Brock Turner.
Yep. And
Right?
it was released after serving a 6-month sentence for sexual assaulting an unconscious woman at Stanford University.
So, people who are listening, like this is what we're talking about, right? These are the things that you see us protesting about and you can see us angry about. And that's just to like show you like what we're talking about with police brutality and the things we're dealing with. So let's talk about the protests. Correct? That's what you wanted to get to, right?
Yes, it's good. It's good. Let's dive into the protests.
Let's get into it. What did you think about the protests?
I think it started off smart, demanding um, that the police officers were to be arrested and that they need to be charged, because firing was never enough. Um, I think it got out of hand with the riots that started out of it. But now looking at history and looking at some evidence that's come up on social media, there has it feels like we're being fed misinformation
Okay.
because there's bricks that start showing up out of nowhere. There's white people that are being caught looting and robbing and inciting violence, and even actual KKK members joining riots to incite a race war. At least is what I've seen on my end. So I could be lied to, but that's what I've seen on my end. When I'm looking at these riots, how they're starting, and what's not being reported as well is the police that have also started and provoked the protesters. Um, this is being shown repeatedly through social media, but it's not being reported on. Now, do I agree with the rioters and the looters? In my response to that is it's hard for me to agree. It's hard for me to disagree either, because we've seen historically protests not work. Colin Kaepernick peacefully protested and was called a son of a bitch by the president and was chastised and blackballed.
Risked his whole career.
Risked his whole career, you know? So how can we look to that as what we can do? Even if you look historically, a lot of people bring Martin Luther King up. He was hosed. He was shot and killed.
Yep.
You know?
A lot of black leaders, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the late great Muhammad Ali, he fought for these things. He fought for these, and as much as these men fought, as much as great as they were, as much power and gravitas these men carried, their pain, we're still living that pain in 2020.
Yeah. So to say that the looters are wrong, to think that the peaceful protests would get as much energy from the media and as much attention is, I don't know if I can say that I'd see that. I don't know if all these looters would garner the same amount of attention as a peaceful protest would. You know,
I mean, we've seen these peaceful protests. We've seen Martin Luther King urging for the Black community to be peaceful and show like this peacefulness towards white people and protests and everything. And he was so powerful, and he caused a lot of change. He made a lot of people stop taking the bus, don't take the taxis. Let's take away, let's not be there economically and feed into the economic system. Let's not take the bus, let's not take the taxis. And it worked. And a lot of laws were passed that allowed Black people to really come back into society and also, integrate themselves and not face as harsher penalties for being Black, right? So when we go back to now, and a lot of people are protesting, and you'd have white people saying, why don't you find a peaceful way to protest, right? How about, first and foremost, educate yourself on all the protests that have happened historically before you say such a ignorant statement. And it goes back to the post I posted the other day about peaceful protests, right? A lot of people say, do you have to act like that? Which, Alex, you were talking about right here, the riots and these looting that's going on. You have to understand that this is, Martin Luther King It's not like it was hundreds of years ago. Like this is back in the 1940s. It's not too long ago. There's people who still live today. They're sons and daughters of parents who lived through this time, and they can say, "Yeah, I was there. I marched with Dr. King." So the quote of Dr. King, he was in the burning Birmingham jail, and one of the quotes that I want to bring up from this letter that he wrote out was, which still hits me, which is so relevant today. He says, "First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, quote, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a quote unquote more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection."
Beautiful quote, man.
Beautiful quote. So when a lot of like people who don't really get it, they say, can you just find a peaceful way to protest? It's like they just don't want to deal with that tension. They want to just have like what he said, a comfortable peace than to have tension, which is going to drive justice. And my take on the whole looting and rioting, I don't care. I honestly don't care, because if the first thing you think about is like, that's not the way to get the protest, that's not to get the peace, then what the hell is going to get your attention, right? If people are actually now angry and they're rioting and looting and everything, then what gives? And that's the thing you have to ask yourself. If Colin's protesting bothered you and it was a peaceful way, and now we're protesting again, and all this rioting and looting that's going on with the fighting with the police is bothering you, then the problem is with you, because you don't really want to fight for justice. You don't really see, you know what, I see what you're doing. I see the change that you're trying to push forward. You only care about the methods, just so like you can hear it, move on with your life peacefully, but you don't want to be bothered because it makes you feel some type of way because you are part of the oppressive system that's doing it. It's so annoying, man.
Most definitely. Very annoying. So now let's kind of take a step back and look at like the history of police brutality.
Let's get to that.
You know, one thing you mapped out was slave patrols. You know, you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So, you know, police brutality, it's just not something that's happening right now. I mean, right now, like we're seeing it just because our camera phones are on us and we can really videotape these things that have happened to Black people, a lot of murders by police. It's because we have smartphones in our pockets and we can instantly pull them out and start recording these things. But this George Floyd case is not the only case that has been televised and protested at this such degree. There's also the Rodney King, which happened 3 decades ago in 1992, when these 3 officers got acquitted for beating up Rodney King, and they got away for free. They got away with no charges, no nothing. And after that, after that whole acquittal, the whole area, Los Angeles, everywhere started rioting because they believed that they needed justice. Before that, 3 decades, in 1965, there were also riots with Marquette Frye. You know, he was pulled over for being suspected for drunk driving, and the same thing happened, and the same rioting happened over and over again. So now, you have to look at the time to really get the word out. It takes a lot of people coming together to really fight for what they believe in. And now you have to think about, there are no camera phones at the time. How many of these cases, how many more George Floyds exist out there? Hundreds of cases that have happened. Going back in time, a lot of Black people lived in fear every single day of their lives because segregation, Jim Crow, all these things were in place, and really living your life as a Black individual was extremely tough. So we have to talk about the history of this whole police brutality and how it happened. So back during slavery, there were people who were called slave patrols. So slave patrols were not your typical cops. These are people who volunteered their time. They volunteered their energy to really make sure that slaves were kept in order, that they didn't rebel against their master, and they could do anything. They had the right to do anything. They can come into your house, and their job was to, if they suspected you held a slave in your house, they would just come in, search for that slave and bring it back. So they searched for people who escaped. They punished slave workers who, they thought that violated their plantation rules. And the start of these slave patrols started in the early 1700s. So now, why does that matter to our current events right now? So back when slave patrols were happening, this is where a lot of KKKs, a lot of slave patrols were making sure that Black people were staying in line. So their attitude, from a historic attitude, is they felt their role was to make sure that Black people stayed in line. So this was the only way of work, the only line of work you can go into. If you feel like you were to want to make sure Black people stayed in line, you'll be a slave patrol. So patrols became common law enforcement, and this began in the early 19th century. They started first in Boston, then they went to New York, places like Albany, Chicago, and Philly. And they're generally white males, and they're focused on just responding to disorder rather than crime. So they're not really responding to crime, but just disorder. But the reason they're focusing on disorder is they were just expected to control the dangerous underclass, because they believe that white people are so pure, so clean and pristine that they're not going to cause any crime. So let's focus on the people who are going to cause most disorder. And who are these people? African Americans, immigrants, and the poor people who are living during this time. So these factors, controlling disorder, lack of adequate policing, training, and everything, like these slave origins that led the slave origins with the slave patrols led to what policing is today. And man, this thing is a historic battle that we're continuing to face every single day because of what happened in prior history. It's the attitude of racism that shaped police brutality. And that's why you see a lot of cops, when they find out about these people, what their backgrounds, what their train of thinking is, they're usually racist people who are involved in the KKK. They have hidden agendas of why they joined the police forces, because being a cop is your easiest way to exert your power on marginalized individuals and get away with it. You know what I'm saying, Al?
Yeah.
Like this is what people need to understand. This is how police brutality is all about, because you join the force to really make sure like you're keeping the people in check. And white people have always had this thing of keeping people in check, when it even started with slavery and people volunteering to make sure that Black people were staying in line and staying beneath them, and them being our superiors. And you can see it in many different forms in modern day.
Yeah. Man, one question that we got that was so, I don't even know how to word it. I don't know if I'll say telling. It was an interesting question. The question was, what do you think the root of racism is? What do you think, actually? When I ask you that, what do you think the root of racism is? What comes to mind?
The root of racism is due to economics, bro. I mean, I always say it's not like they hate us, but we were brought here in
On
slave
business.
ships and business. It was labor that was brought to build America for free. And the only reason they had us is because they had tools and guns that they can use on us if things got out of hand. So that's the root of racism. Racism, people need to understand, is tied to economics in every single kind of way. That's my answer. And you can really think about it from every single thing, from equity to healthcare to businesses to labor and what it did and how it really helped white people advance in society. Racism is all due to uh, economics. Of course, you have your hatred for black people, but everything is tied to, in my opinion, when you really look at like everything that goes on with racism, inequality is tied to economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Living, it's having an economic advantage. And you know, we as black people are so far behind the generational wealth gap, and it's all due to racism and slavery that happened over the past 200 years, 200 to 400 years.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's economics. Racism is big business. And also one thing I realized is that we were one of the only times where people were putting science behind their racism, where they were trying to say that it was like an evolutionary trait. You know, I remember seeing studies in school talking about Black people having smaller brains, and really trying to use racism as a tool for rationalizing economic gain. You know, racism was combined with rationalized economic gain through science and religion. You know, and that was like the power force to drive racism faster than more other cultures, because we're not the only culture to have slavery. You know, the Irish were enslaved. I don't know. I think the Egyptians were enslaved as well. You know, but the combination of religion and science and economics was a powerhouse for driving racism, you know. But let's get back into the regularly scheduled program, man. So let's dive into Jim Crow. You know, it's a crazy history when you think about the Jim Crow laws that were in place, man. Oh, and you want to talk about it?
Absolutely, man. So Jim Crow laws were there were a collection of state statutes that that legalized racism, that legalized racial segregation. So they existed for about 100 years from the post-Civil War era, and from the post-Civil War, it meant that marginalized African Americans they don't have the right to vote, they can't hold jobs, they can't get an education or other opportunities, and if you try to defy these things that were placed under these laws, there's going to be harsh jail sentences, there's going to be violence, and ultimately you're going to end up killed. So these laws were placed on people, and imagine not being able to have an education. Imagine not being able to do anything just because these laws were placed on you. So another thing that comes from these things were just these things called black codes. So what these black codes meant, they were placed to show how formerly enslaved people, where they could work and for how much compensation. So they appeared through the South as a legal way just to put black citizens into indentured servitude, taking their voting rights away, controlling where they lived, where they traveled, the children they have, and how white people can use them for labor purposes. So during this time when Jim Crow was around, violence was just on the rise like crazy. So living life as a black person during Jim Crow was just extreme. Imagine just walking outside and a white person, a group of white people seeing you, and immediately you're in danger because you don't know what they're going to do to you. And this was just an aspect of regular American life. Schools are vandalized. They're destroyed. Anything that you build, a business, whatever it is, white people just can come in and destroy it because they feel as if like they have a right to do that. You know, they tortured people, lynched black people at night. Black people were hung at during this time. So you're placed in neighborhoods that there's no economic advancement at all. You can't vote. You can't get an education. So you don't even know anything. You're being plucked for labor, and this is your life. This is how you're living. And then you get into the KKK. You know, KKK was a secret society that was just terrorizing black communities and seeping through just the Southern culture, you know. And the thing about the KKK, they had the highest number of government officials in this group. So you have your government official chilling in the office at night, ruling, doing government work, and then at night they come in the KKK clan. So Ku Klux Klan, that's what the KKK stands for, and they'll go find black people, kill them, lynch them, uh, torture their homes, burn their homes down, and get away with it. That's how life was for black people. So this anger black people have, they still live with it from this time. They still live with these laws that existed in that time. Like that mentality is just, you're scarred forever. It's passed on generations. So it's generational
Generational
trauma.
passings, yeah.
Exactly. And it's just so sad. It's so sad. Like a lot of, you know, I see on Twitter a lot people talking about, you know, my grandfather told me these things that, you know, what's happening with George Floyd now. My grandfather said, you know, I never saw it like this. Or I remember this time they did this to us. I remember living through this. You know, these are stories that are passed down from generation to generation. Like we're living through that today, man. So
Yeah, man.
that's Jim Crow, bro.
One question we actually got a lot of was what's white privilege? Could you break it down for us?
Mm-hmm. Man, white privilege. I mean, bro, we can go a lot of places with white privilege. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What is white privilege to you?
To me, white privilege is the benefit of the doubt. It's being taken seriously. You know, one thing I can speak to was as an entrepreneur, you know, when I was first getting started, I first got my client in one of the more expensive sides of town. So I was like, okay, cool. I got one client. Now let's go get some more. So I literally went across the street from the client that I had, and he had a big ass store. So I'm like, all right, if you're on the street, you 100% know who he is. He's literally right in front of you. So I go to the store right in front of it, and it's like a boutique, like a fashion boutique, and I walk in, and the lady first eyes me like I don't belong there, and I kind of don't. I can give her that. I don't. I'm a big black male, and the store is a woman's boutique. You know,
Very unusual.
it's a bit unusual. You know, it's like, hey, what's this guy doing here?
Hey, you know, Al, bro, you never smile either, bro.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest smiler. You know,
You're
I
not the
mean, when I'm
biggest
selling,
one.
I'm smiling. I'll say that. When I'm selling, I'm smiling. I'm a happy guy when I'm
your salesmanship shows up when you're selling your
most
services.
definitely. I'm selling services. I'm quite a nice guy.
Exactly.
But getting back into it, I know I had a quick conversation. Let's introduce myself. I know, of course, I'm not, as a salesman, I'm not trying to try and close immediately. Just want to introduce myself, and that I did. You know, then I went off and I said, hey, I'm working across the street, and she was nodding. I believe this woman was like maybe Eastern European. You know, I come back another day, and I walk up to the cashier. That's where she's standing, and she's helping a customer out. So of course, like I do my own thing. I'm just walking around and waiting, and I come back and the customer's done, and she would not even look at me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and her associate comes up to her and is like, oh, I can hear her literally whisper, what does he want? What does he want? And I'm like, what the heck? What's going on?
Mm.
And she just turns to me slightly and looks under her glasses, like the old parents do.
Like
Old parents
like
do.
the librarian look, I call
Old
it.
librarian look. It's like we don't buy Bell. I'm like, buy
Rah.
Bell. What? What's going on here? Hold on, buy Bell. I'm like, I don't have nothing to do with Bell. She thinks because I'm a black man with glasses that I work for Bell Internet.
Mm-hmm.
That's where her mind's going in her head. And even though I had explained to her previously, she was tuning me completely out, and just like this black guy's talking to me, I'm just gonna tune out and nod
Were,
and smile.
were you wearing a bell, like a blue shirt or something? Just
No,
like nothing at all. You're wearing normal street clothes.
I was wearing a shirt and tie. I was wearing a shirt and tie because
Okay.
the store I was a client with, that was my client, sorry, was a high-end menswear store. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, I'm going to a store that's in the high-end realm, and you dress the part.
Look professional.
Yeah, stay professional.
Yeah.
I thought that mattered at the time. You know, so yeah, so I was like shocked by that, and then she was like, "We're not buying Bell." I'm like, "Hey, I don't have anything to do with Bell." Then I was like, "Hey, what I actually want to help you with is your social media. You have really bad social media." And of course, I say it like that, but I said it, in uh, uh, helpful critique standpoint, and she wasn't even listening to what I was saying. And she basically has said to me, like, no matter what you're selling, because of what you look like, we are not buying. You know, um,
Wow.
and that was like a telltale moment for me, and it was tough at first. It was like she didn't even look at me like a human. She's looked at me like lower part of society. You know, this person is trying to swindle me because of what he has. There was no benefit of the doubt. Not, hey, let me give this guy 5 minutes of my time to actually hear him out. It was, uh, whatever you do, we're not interested. Please leave. And that happens. That happens. So I've had many experiences along those lines of people just taking me for a joke, not giving me the benefit of the doubt. So I learned how to properly maneuver myself as an entrepreneur. And that's what I think white privilege is. Is this that benefit of the doubt? I know it's a bit of a long-winded speech, a little story
It's
time.
story time, bro. Yeah, man. You gotta
But
explain it, man.
yeah, but that's kind of an example of what white privilege is like,
Mm-hmm.
versus the opposite, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think first thing to really break down white privilege is essentially an invisible force. You can't, it's not something you see, it's not something you can touch, but it's a force that exists within interactions
Mhm.
and different synergies that you know it's there, but you can't really pinpoint and really classify to say that is white privilege. It's just you can feel it. It's something that you look at it, those feelings you can get within your stomach. It's like a feeling like boom, I feel like something's happening right now. Someone walks in a room, it's an energy and it just hits you in the core. That's how white privilege, when you notice it, you feel it. And white people can't feel that force, but black people and other minority groups as well who get marginalized know what that feeling is like. So the best way to really look at white privilege is for white people, this is what I'm talking about, is the privilege you get is, for example, being able to walk into a store and find that the main shampoo, for example, like for women, the pantyhose are catered for your hair, they're catered for your skin tone. And it's being able to turn on the TV and just seeing people of your race widely presented. It's these things that you walk in there and you don't even have to think of going to like the ethnic aisle because you have to think of products for your hair. It's you expect your you expect to be served just because this is your world. This is the world you exist in. So to first really understand white privilege, bro, we got to understand racism, right? So racism is due to bias. And racism happens when that bias translates into action. So, for example, a person might unconsciously or consciously believe that a person of color is more likely to commit a crime or be dangerous. That's a bias. A person, a white person, can become anxious if they perceive a black person to be angry. That stems from bias again. And these biases become racism through a number of actions, which come from many different things, from individual level to also group level. So this can be a white person crossing the street just to avoid walking to a group of young black guys. It's a person calling like 911 to report the presence of a black person who is quote unquote not behaving lawfully. Example, Amy Cooper calling the cops on Christian Cooper because he told her to put her dog on a leash, and she immediately calls the cops on him, right? Because this is like a big black man. She feels in danger, and I'm going to call the cops. It's police shooting an unarmed black person because
it wasn't her feeling in danger. It was her trying to get back at him for making her feel stupid.
And it's the fact that that's racist is because she knows she can call the cops, and the cops are going to take care of this. Agreed. That's why she's like, I'm calling the cops. I'm calling them. There's an African American man, and they're calling me. I'm calling the cops, and there she's choking her poor dog. Like she just forgot everything.
Like, let me go, Fountain.
Let me go, dog. Oh my God. Let me go. Yeah. Right. That's what we're talking about. Like, that's like, being able to do that because for what the example I was saying, police shooting a black person because they feared for their life. They don't have to give it a second. It's even reaching for the dashboard in your car to get your documentation. They believe you're reaching for a gun. So you live on a very short leash as a black person. It's a jury finding a black person guilty of a violent crime despite scant evidence that there's evidence that shows like there's no way I did this thing, but you're immediately found guilty because you're black.
We get it.
Like another example, bro, it's also like people investigating black and Latino activities rather than investigating white supremacist activities, right? They'd rather do that. So racism rely on what sociologists call racialization. So it's grouping people in physical difference, skin tone, and this fuels that bias and becomes a tool to justify the cruel treatment and discrimination of, non-white people. So this gets interesting, bro. So what is really like white privilege, Essentially, it's like a double whammy because when you say white, it creates discomfort because it's not really used to define their race. And then you have privilege, which doesn't really exist for a lot of white people, especially rural white people, because that doesn't apply to them. So we got to define what white privilege is not. So white privilege is not suggesting that white people have never struggled. That's not what white privilege is. It's not assuming that everything white people have done or accomplished is not earned. White people work hard. Us as a business podcast, we know that anything to accomplish anything takes a lot of hard work. It just doesn't get given to you, but it can be placed to you if it was generational wealth, which you got through the labor of black people earlier on, who allowed you to advance yourself, and you built that wealth off those people. You can pass it on. But generally, a lot of people in modern times, they work hard, but they have an advantage, which we're getting at here. So white privilege is viewed as a built-in advantage. As well, we're going to define it. It's separate from income and effort. So over the years, white privilege has taken different meanings, such as having a greater access to power and resources than people of color. So now, white privilege is more psychological. It's like it's white people's lack of awareness that they have held this power, and it can be found in day-to-day transactions and in white people's ability to move through professional and personal worlds with relative ease just because they're white. Man, what do you think of that? I know I'm going out on like
your bag right now.
I'm in my bag right now and I'm talking about it, but I'm gonna let you chime in here.
Most definitely. one thing that we didn't really touch on is white privilege in the workplace.
Mhm.
One thing that really testifies to is when it comes to tokenism, when it comes to sorry, when it comes to applying for a job, on your resume, what name is actually on the resume and being taken seriously. You know,
Mhm.
white privilege comes full force then, and it's almost and there's an anti-black um, privilege that comes in, not privilege, but bias that comes into it. Because a lot of times when they're applying for a job, Jamal can have the same name or sorry, same experience and assets under his belt as a Tim, but because of the name, there's a bias that's placed upon the Jamal. And even it can work for Verushika or um, Ming Lee, because
Yeah.
there's no a bias that other races can actually get the job done where
Mhm.
other races cannot. And this is a unfortunate bias that happens in real life. So that's what I think contributes to white privilege is the assumptions of who can do what.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. It's like that's another interesting thing, man. It's being able to just go through life with so much ease, and you're not aware that you have this privilege at all. Um, and the fact that you can actually say what is white privilege, and the fact that you're asking that means that you're living off the privilege of what privilege is. So another thing you bring about is actually in the workplace, right? Uh, White people, of course, they have a lot of businesses they own. There's institutional racism, which, white privilege is a part of. An example is a lot of white companies, a lot of predominantly white companies, if you were to like ask for a reference from a friend, it'll usually be from like a white person in that business. And who are they gonna hire? They're gonna use your reference who's a white person to bring in another white person because they don't really associate with black people and they have an in to that company. It's your dad or mom working at a company in a higher position than not the regular, but from other groups. And they can easily get you an internship in these different firms because they have that white power structure that exists,
The relationships.
the relationship. So there's a lot more economic opportunities. And it's this power dynamic that exists. That's what white privilege is. And it continues to endure today. And this blocks out a lot of black people from accessing these opportunities because they don't have black people there's no black people in these spaces. There's no black executives. There's no black people on boards. There's a lot of companies that put out a lot of horrible and tasteless commercials or campaigns, and easily they could have not have that out if they had people of color in there, diversity. And now, of course, diversity is being pushed out because there's a lot more pressure to have more diverse workforces, but they don't know where to start. And the fact that they don't know where to start is like now you got to have a diversity officer, chief diversity officer, is because they don't know what to do because all they know is just like hire for the best person. But you don't know, you have a lot of implicit biases that exist because like a black person, you have a bias that, oh, these people are lazy or they can't get the job done. So you're blocking them out from that opportunity. And you'd rather take the white person because they make you feel comfortable in the workplace. You're comfortable working with them because even though they might not have it, it's just, I'd
It's
rather not take that
unfortunate.
risk than, yeah, you'd rather not take that risk to bring that black person.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, things are changing there. Like you mentioned, there is more diversity training and
Hmm.
diversity hires. A thing you have to be careful of is tokenism, because a lot of companies are starting to hire, but it won't be for senior positions. It'll be for mid-level management or low-level beginning positions. But then when it comes to actual high-ranking positions where they start to have power in the company, they start to feel a glass wall, or yeah, a glass wall, where they continuously feel like they're not getting promoted or moved up because of the race. So a lot of times it's a boys club, or it's a specific they are like us type of bias that goes towards hiring versus not hiring, or just the relationship. A lot of times, because someone is different and doesn't relate to them, or want to go out for a drink, they really don't relate to them, so they can't see themselves promoting them, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate. And it's just the fuckery that we go through on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a lot of the bro culture that exists within our age group, and then people like my parents as well too. My dad worked; he had a high position at a company, and he was like one of the only black. He was the only black man in that position as CFO of this. Um, is called. I don't want to put the name out there, but they made airplanes, and he was a CFO of this company. And he would tell me like, you know, it's so hard to really. He comes from Kenya. It's African. He's not all about like the chit chat, all these side chatters and everything like that. It's very broy still, even though you're getting in that mature level in your career. But it's like these type of cultures that exist which block other people from coming in that organization and feeling as if they fit in. So that's why one of the things that I hate with now is this term called culture fit. Have you heard that term?
Hmm.
It's culture fit is a quick way to really
Disqualify.
disqualify someone,
Yeah.
right? So you have a qualified individual who wants to work there, but then they ask, is he a good culture fit? He's like, I think you'll be great for the culture, meaning I feel like you'll be able to crack, we'll be able to talk and crack jokes, which might not seem, I mean, when I say they're cracking jokes, but they'll feel comfortable around you. And what's feeling comfortable is being able to fit into the whiteness that you're coming into. And that's what a good culture fit in. A black person is not going to fit in that. Uh, any other person, an Indian person. Pardon?
Sometimes they do, and that's what breeds code switching.
Mm-hmm.
Is switching,
Oh my God, yes.
yeah, switching to make that person feel comfortable, to feel like you are the culture fit. you know um and we've even experienced it where we realize that the person isn't as much of a culture fit for us, so we start adapting to them
Mm-hmm.
because we feel like we want to make them comfortable, adapt
Yeah.
to what the so-called norm is when it comes to business.
It's black people have to like switch up every single time they're around white people. You can't be black. It's you have to talk in a way that makes them feel comfortable. And you know, I don't know what to really. I know where I'm going with this, but what I'm saying is, even us as black people, as black men, is we really have to watch ourselves a lot. Is we really have to always be on our toes to make sure that we're not crossing the line. If I'm angry, it's I have to be angry and be politically correct at the same time. And you see this uh in whatever football, like Tom Brady, he's there angry and whatever, it's like he's showing passion, quote unquote. If a black person does it, he's acting like a clown. He's showing he's not really being a good team player. When a black person dances or they're like they're angry, they're showing emotion and everything. He's just
Hmm.
like, whoa, it's like that angry black man type of stereotype they get. But then someone like Tom Brady or like another white player is like, wow, look at that passion they're showing on the thing. That is what winning looks like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's these type of stereotypes that you have all the time. Black women, I know I have sisters. It's you gotta talk in a way that you don't come across as like the angry black woman
Hmm.
quote stereotype, or you don't want to turn as ghetto. Oh my gosh, like he just like she just went ghetto on us type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another
You know?
woman will actually use it to become edgy or cool. They'll use the colloquialisms and the way of talking to sound cool, to fit in, or to be that edgy, cool white girl, Asian girl, brown girl. But then when it comes to actually standing up for issues of that culture, a lot not are silent. You know, this one thing that we can know, for we'll get to it, but one thing to be mentioned, if you're using the culture, in your regular day language, be sure to uh, be responsible when issues like the George Floyd situations come up. Take responsibility and keep the same energy throughout.
A lot of things we do and produce, we are the culture. American culture is Black culture, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Everything from music to sports to what's cool, what's in, what are the new dances, what's the best way to dress. It all comes from, a lot of the time, Black women. Black women are the majority trendsetters that you see in culture right now. What's cool in music, what's cool in sports, it's all Black culture. Everything is derived from Black culture, from food, music, fashion, everything, you name it. So you as a white person, if you're always benefiting from this culture, and also if you profit from Black culture, the most you can do is, like, if you're doing that, why not just pay it forward? But if you see something is wrong, you call it out. Call it out. Do something about it. Donate. Understand what the culture is all about, what people are facing. Don't just their profit, enjoy everything that Black people are producing and making it fun for you to live, but not do it, but be mum when things come up and it's time to actually speak
Say
out.
be mum?
Yeah, you haven't heard that before?
No, let's be mum.
It's like kind of just like mom, like you're just quiet.
Word?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard that phrase before. Mom.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting to use
You've been
that
waiting
word.
to drop that forever.
It's one of them ones, bro. It's like you write a couple freestyle. You kind of write a couple freestyle bars, and then you're just waiting for that day, like you're actually in a freestyle battle with your boys. You're like, yo, I'm pulling out this verse. I don't care.
Mom is your freestyle battle word.
You know what I'm saying? It's one of them words that I read in books, and there's no time to use it, but I don't know. I just felt inspired right now to use that.
You
word.
have to drop it.
I gotta drop it, bro. Yeah, I gotta drop that word. I'm feeling inspired.
All right, so we just covered white privilege. Let's get into entrepreneurship. Segue kings. Very hard segue. But how do you find being an entrepreneur as a Black man? What has been your experience in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years?
It's interesting because being a Black entrepreneur, and I gotta start saying this, my history in entrepreneurship, if you don't really know me, I started being an entrepreneur from around grade 11 when I started my first brand called Recruit Sportswear. Built that brand for about 3 years, and then I shifted to tech. And this is where I really realized how racism and white privilege, going back to that, really plays into it. So when you think about a technology entrepreneur, you think of a white male. They're around late 20s to mid 30s. If they live in America, they most likely went to a prestigious school like Stanford or Harvard. So when you think of these like white entrepreneurs, a lot of them who have built successful companies like Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, all these, Kevin Systrom from Instagram, all these entrepreneurs, they went to great schools. So when you're a tech entrepreneur, this is the framework that they use to really see if you're a great entrepreneur or not. And if you're a Black person, they don't really see you as a tech entrepreneur. So think about tech entrepreneurs. Can we really name Black, like, let's say 10 Black tech entrepreneurs who are well known?
All right. We got Mr. Bevel,
Tristan Walker.
Tristan Walker. We got Fleeting, Dry Fleeting. Is he well known? Decent, decent. Um,
That
we
is
got
Pierre Laguerre.
Pierre Laguerre. I'm trying to think who else we got. I'd say the Budgetnista, Tiffany Aliche. I'd say who else can I name? Black tech entrepreneurs. The CEO of Afrotech, CEO of Black.
Morgan
uh,
DeBon.
I'll say Morgan DeBron's a tech entrepreneur for sure. For sure, doing a programmatic ads. As soon as you deal with programmatic ads, you're definitely a tech entrepreneur. Morgan DeBron. I'll say Jabrilla Goro. I'd say Jamal Conner. I mean, he has a product, but he also has a Facebook ads company. So I'm at 6. I'm like drawing at strings now. What else we got? I think that's all I can really think of to the black tech entrepreneurs. Yeah. What else you got? You got any? Does his name something? Shout them out.
I know this guy. He's building a company called Listener. His name is Ronnie.
Yes. I'm thinking about Idris Sandu. Yes, Spatial Labs. Idris Sandu.
And the founder and owner of Calendly is a Nigerian entrepreneur.
Yes.
Who else do we have? Man.
The CEO of Chase as well. But that's not really tech.
That's an executive.
Banking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But man, this is the problem we have here. The fact that we have to think this hard shows the lack of representation in tech. So there's not a lot of tech entrepreneurs. And me at the time building Sneaker Deck, I'm a Black entrepreneur in university building a tech platform. I'm the Black founder of it. So when you're talking to people and you're talking to people who have influence in the tech community, they're surprised that you're a tech entrepreneur, because a lot of Black entrepreneurs, they're building businesses in the service space or in the food space, or they usually fall or in the fashion space more than anything, but they're not really building tech companies, which is where a lot of the scalability happens really fast. So when I was really building Sneaker Deck, I'd really get a lot of side eyes. A lot of people didn't really take me that serious when I used to talk to them earlier on. There was like an energy that you'd feel that you did not belong in this space. And I used to feel this when I used to go to like the DMZ upstairs and I used to like interact with all these other companies. It's as if like they felt like you did not belong in that space. They did not really see you as a founder, So these type of side commentaries, when you meet people, they're surprised that you're building a tech company because there's not a lot of Black people building a tech company. These are the things that as Black men and women, we have to overcome as being entrepreneurs. So when you're building a company as an entrepreneur and you're Black, there's a lot of disadvantages you face, especially if you're building in tech, if you're building a tech company. One of the big ones is access to funding and loans and exposure.
Yeah.
In tech, it's a very white community. It's a very, very white community. I don't want to pull out stats out of nowhere, but I know more than 90% of VCs, venture capitalists, are white. Majority of them are men. And getting access to these communities is very tough for Black people. You don't know where to go to find these VCs because the VC community is very relationship based, right? They'll invest in you if they know about you. And how do they know about you? From other angels who've invested in you. And for Black people to crack in this space, even Black women, more than anything, it's super hard to get in there because you're not really someone they see themselves with, or they talk to on a daily basis. So even when you pitch a VC, I remember Tristan Walker, the founder of Bevel, when he was pitching his razor company, when he was pitching the system that he was building, a lot of them were white venture capitalists, and they were like, well, razor bumps are not a problem because when black men shave, they have a lot of razor bumps. They get a lot of hair, ingrown hairs. So when they shave with the regular razor, like a Gillette or a Bic razor, they get ingrown hairs. So when he's pitching, he was like, well, a lot of people don't face that problem, would rather go tackle skincare and acne. But Tristan's like, no, black men face this problem. So talking to white VCs and explaining to them the businesses you're building, it's so hard for them to really understand because they lack context. They're not in that culture to really understand why you're building. So they don't fund you, even though it's a great opportunity. So that's why you need more people of color in these spaces to really provide opportunities to tech entrepreneurs to really advance their businesses forward. The next thing is education, to expand your skills in coding and having access to these programs that can really bring on a lot more black entrepreneurs. There's a lack of access to those things because they're very, right now it's getting better, but generally for black communities, like when you think of a black community, they don't have exposure to math and science programs and coding and all these different things. All these things that coding and science and entering in technology, it's not exposed to marginalized groups and black communities. So when they think about entrepreneurship, they don't really know where to start. So that's why you're seeing a lot of programs like Black Boys Code, Black Girls Code, Code 2040. And even when you're an engineer, it's so hard to get internships. It's so hard to get positions. If you're an engineer, you've worked so hard to become an engineer, to get a position as a developer, because the prototypical look of a developer is white. It's a white man. So entering into technology is so hard for black people. And this is one thing that, we can really track back to when we talk about economics of being black and having access to proper education. And how does education come from? It comes from living in the right places, going to the right schools with good funding, so you can actually work to really build your knowledge, and you can go to class and get proper schooling to go to these schools and actually study computer science and then actually become a developer or an entrepreneur to really build these technology companies. That's one of the things that we face, is because historically, as we mentioned before, when black people were coming in, they were integrating into society, they were redlined. So what redline means is there was a zone where black people could live, where they could buy homes. And when they lived in these areas, they didn't have access to the right schooling. They didn't have access to loans as easy as they were to other white people. And this really held them back from getting right access to education and to right economic opportunities. So now the black families, especially the father figures in these families, they were in these neighborhoods which were just extremely tough. They were heavily policed, and the only economic opportunities they had was to involve themselves in crime, low-paying jobs where they can't even support their families. And this is around the time the crack epidemic was starting, around the Ronald Reagan era, and crack was being placed in these neighborhoods. So now you have these fathers who are really trying to provide for their family. They get caught, they're sentenced to jail. They have harsh penalties, years in jail for selling crack. Now you have mothers raising young boys and girls who have lack of access to education. And the only thing that can see as a way out is entertainment. So they don't have the right school to go to. A lot of them drop out. They also get themselves into crime. They join gangs. And it's just like this repeating cycle of these tough neighborhoods, these kids just doing the same thing over and over that generationally happened. So how are you going to expect to get an education to go to Stanford if you were in that position? or to even go to college or even go to university. These families never went to college. They didn't even finish high school because all they were focused on was surviving. That's all the name of the game was just survival every single day. So now you have a group of Black people who've never had access to opportunity. And white people, not all, but you have some that just work hard and you'll make it. How am I supposed to make it if I don't have the right opportunity you had to really allow you to get that education, to be in that position, to go build a Microsoft, to go build a Facebook? You had access, which Black people don't have access. How is I going to get exposed to technology, to math and science, if I did not have funding in my school to give us good textbooks, to give us great teachers who can teach us these things, right? So Black people for decades have been playing strugglenomics more than powernomics, more than anything. So now there's a lack of entrepreneurs who are building businesses in spaces where they're the biggest consumers in technology, consuming tech, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Everything that's in is brought up by Black influencers and Black creators, and they never get the credit for it. So we are consumers, but we're not creators, because being able to create needs access. And when you have access, you get education. When you get education, you can spot opportunities. And when you spot opportunities, you can create and you can build wealth, and you can build businesses for your community, and you can hire people who look like you. So being a Black entrepreneur is so tough, because you, especially we're talking about tech, but we can talk about other things like where the other services and fashion and all those products that we build. But to really build great companies, to build super great wealth in tech, which is right now, which is scalable, we don't have access to that. The education, there's no representation. So a lot of Black entrepreneurs, they know what they do best, which is creating great services, creating great restaurants, brands, fashion brands, hair care products. A lot of them are in the service, but to really, we need people, barbershops. Mm-hmm. We need people building companies. We need people building corporations. And we need to do that, but to really catch up, man, it's going to take us a long time to get there. That's the sad part, is because our starting line is so far behind, because we're placed in unfavorable positions to take advantage of these things, because there was no opportunity. Like, you were legit given a start way, like, that is so behind, that catching up, it's going to be our kids, our grandchildren, who profit from the things that we're doing right now. Right. So a lot of Black people are waking up right now. They're noticing these things, but that's how it's like being Black and building businesses. Because, as I said again, racism is tied to economics. It's tied to equity. It's tied to home ownership. It's tied to owning assets and businesses. But those things are so behind because of just historical marginalization. And we're trying, but to really catch up, to really make an impact where we can escape racism at work, we can have access to funding, because we know other Black people who can give us that funding. We're like 50 years behind, bro, and white people, this is what we face. This is what we face on a continuous basis, is racism, trying to get money. You face more no's. You're trying to get a bank loan. It's harder. They turn you away because you're Black. And it's all because of redlining that happened in the past. And we're still marginalized till today.
So let's talking towards moving forward, what do you think are some of the things we can do to become a better economic powerhouse as Black people, in your opinion?
A few things we can do is, it starts from, to really, one thing we've got to address is, to see the change we want to see now, is we first got to establish that we're living through a broken system. right? Which is based off systematic oppression, that to even really make a dent, it's going to take years of building and building and building to really remove those systematic barriers which are placed in front of us. But what we can do right now is we can start with education. We can start educating our kids, our friends, and putting them in positions to get the best education where they can spot the best opportunities. Second thing is ownership. Every Black family should start working towards building their own business. It doesn't have to be a mega corporation, but each family should start their own business. It could be a scale, it could be a shop, it could be a convenience store, it could be a farmer's market. These things matter. If you look at other groups, Chinese, a lot of these convenience stores are owned by them, and also Indian families. So when they immigrate to Canada, they have an opportunity to hire people who look like them to give them a head start. What do Black people have? We don't have anything like that, right?
You own
So
some barbershops,
we own some barbershops,
you know,
but that
clothing
is
stores.
but that is like, but we need more of them. We need more businesses which we can employ other people. And it just starts with the home. It starts educating your young kids about financial literacy. You know, as Black people, we're the lowest participants in the stock market. Market participation is extremely low, right? Wealth is built through stock market investing and learning about how the stock market works. Because if you invest early on for your family, as men right now, like, you know, you and I were 26, 27, we're investing our money, we're building this company. We can hire our own kids, we can build this into a massive business, and we pass this down to our families, and they come work for the business and they hire other people who look like them. We provide opportunity. So it starts with educating the kids about ownership and thinking like owners and not just thinking like consumers, and putting them in educational positions where they can spot opportunities and build from that, because it takes a village. It takes small actions, but with small actions they can amount to something big.
Most definitely, really well said. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Need more ownership. Need more laws put in place, and we need white people stepping up as well. You know, to be an ally in this situation. One thing you could do is open up your network. You know, one thing that's been a consistent thread in our podcast is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is built on relationships. You know, so connecting each other with proper relationships that can get people to the next level, you know. So whether it be sorry, a guest on our podcast, you know, for example, or a manufacturer for a smaller brand so they can expand. um, One thing that uh, b- blew up Shea Moisture was meeting the one person who was at Walmart who could put shea butter across the nation, you know. More people, more connections, more revenue. It's one of the simpler things that can make a stronger difference. So we have a lot of our white audience who are asking, what can I do? Well, one thing you can do is open up your network. You can share content on social media, but share it in a meaningful way, which means posting actual videos and images, not just stories or quick hits of content, actual videos where people can get a uh, deep dive into what um, you're promoting and put their dollars behind it, for one. Um, well, that's just how you could add to entrepreneurship. We'll get into that and then the questions though. I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
Um,
man. And yeah, like when we talk about relationships,
mhm,
also opportunities, bro. You know, if
mhm,
you have a positioning opening at work and you think about people you know, reach out to your Black friends first.
mhm.
See, hey, like there's an opening at work. I think you're great at this position. I think you'd be great for it. So not saying just give handouts, but make sure like the person you are is qualified, but make sure that person is a Black individual, because they don't have that opportunity. They don't have access to get in that place because they're Black. So make sure that you're providing these opportunities, because one thing that stops Black people is getting an in. And everybody white always has an in. First and foremost, you're white. You automatically get an in. And if you think this is not important, ask yourself, why are there Black groups, Black lawyers of so XXX, or doctors, Black doctors XXX,
On
or
Facebook, online, on LinkedIn.
exactly,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
Black fashion designers of Ryerson or whatever. Why
Yeah.
is there Black societies everywhere in the world? Is because there's a lack of ins, like I need an in to that organization. So if you Black man get in there, you Black woman get in there, I expect you to return the favor back. So that's why like they're forming these groups together, because to crack into white spaces is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult because there's no person in there that looks like them. So when a Black person gets in there, they want another Black person to bring them back. But white people, you can do this by helping a Black person, by first thinking of a person of color to bring on board when that position is opened.
Yeah. Um, a qualified person, most
Mhm.
definitely. Um, Also, when you're in the workplace and you hear of something being executed that doesn't sound right, speak up. Speak up.
Speak out, man.
If you think that it would, you take offense to it if it were you, have that empathy to think, well, if I don't like this happen to me, then they should wouldn't like it happen to them. Sometimes you might not be the person in the room, so invite that person into the room. Personally for me, I had an ad campaign that I was running for a client,
Mhm.
and he actually wanted to do um, like a LGBT themed campaign, and I was like, okay, you can think about this. Let me get back to you. Instead of me just trying to execute it myself and plan it out, I went to shout out to Brianne Bradshaw. I said, hey, let's grab a coffee and let's talk about this. This could be an opportunity for you. I'd like to bring you into the room and have you at the table to say, all right, this is what you want to execute. This is unethical, or this is ethical, but you should go about it doing it in this way.
Mhm.
So we're still highlighting the product that you want to showcase, but doing it in an ethical way. So my group of people won't be offended by it, and it can make the most money. So some of the things to think about, some food for thought when it comes to operating on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And educate yourself. Educating yourself is important too. Um, White people live in a space where you're living like this is just a daily thing for you. You're living, you're enjoying your life, you move, you do whatever. There's nothing you really feel that you're being unbothered, because that is white privilege, as we said. So just take an initiative to educate yourself with reading about the history, reading about why people are protesting, why how marginalization is like in the workplace. I mean, how marginalized groups are in the workspace, and how what you can do to make them feel comfortable. Because there's something called white fragility, and a lot of white people, it's uncomfortable for them to talk about race. So when a Black person tries to educate a white person on race, it's like immediate discomfort, and they don't want to talk about it. And um, they can't. It's like explaining, talking about these things. It's like telling a blind person the color red when they've never seen it before. So trying to really talk about it and articulating in a way that you can really simplify it, but really technically describe it, puts Black people in a position where sometimes they're just like, fuck it, I'm not even gonna bother, because you just don't get it. Um, so one thing you can do is educate yourself so you can make that conversation easier with a fellow Black person when you
Yeah.
see them.
And for that, we're gonna have some resources in the link below or in the description of the podcast with different resources to books, phrases used, don't where to donate. This is a really big resource on everything you were most likely looking for when it comes to just getting educated and unlearning what you might have been taught growing up. So make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
So, have you covered everything? Are you ready to get into these white people questions?
Um, First, we got to shout out to the people who started Black Lives Matter. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah.
Let's do that. All right. It's actually funny enough. It's actually one of the questions is who started Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
So let me pull that up. Man, Black Lives Matter. You know what I haven't seen in a long time.
What's that?
What's it? DeRay is DeRay
Mc-
Davis?
Dewey McKesson.
McKesson. Yeah,
McKesson, man.
he's kind of been.
He's been quiet. Like I haven't seen him out here. You know, like he's been really mum.
This is your
Hey,
new
dude,
word, eh?
it's the new word, bro. I'm giving you some game, bro.
Don't kill me. All right, man. So let me not be mom.
Yeah.
Well, Black Lives Matter comes from Alicia Garza and Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Basically, they created a Black-centered political will and movement, building projects, building a project called Black Lives Matter. It was a response into the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman. Um, Basically, that was the answer to the first question. Where does Black Lives Matter come from? So let's get into more of these white people questions.
Yeah. So, did we address where these questions came from, bro?
Oh, okay, give them some more context. So
Yeah.
basically, for this conversation, I reached out to people all online on Facebook and Instagram, and just said, hey, with everything going on, people tweeting and posting on Instagram and LinkedIn, black boxes to show their solidarity with the current situations going on with the George Floyd protest. I asked them, hey, is there any questions you want to ask? To get more context into what's going on. Um, what dialogue do you want to have? What can we have a dialogue about? And I'm not saying we have the answers. And by no means are we the spokesperson for Black people. We're simply trying to have a dialogue and try to educate people where we see fit. So yeah, so let's jump right in. So question one comes from Karen. I live in a white neighborhood. I have heard recently that Black people rioting aren't doing themselves any favors, and all lives matter in quotation marks. I think it'd be really helpful to address these two topics. So we definitely dug into this in the pod earlier, so we don't have to dive too deep here. Black people rioting are doing themselves any favors. One is garnered a ton of attention towards the George Floyd murders with um, getting the cops arrested and getting them charged. And the charge moved up from murder 3 and manslaughter to murder 2. And right now, we're going to see how that plays out, Um, and honestly, protesting it is a challenging thing to defend because not protesting, sorry, looting and rioting is a challenging thing to defend. Protesting is very easy to defend. This because in regards to looting, of course, it's stealing from other companies, especially small mom and pop shops. But thing is that they have insurance. They'll be a fool not to have proper business insurance for their companies. But there's actual lives being lost, and it's important that we don't just focus on the effects. We focus on the cause. The cause of this comes from Black bodies not being treated seriously that and all lives matter. Well, we covered that. Let's quickly cover that again. All lives matter. as a rebuttal to Black Lives Matter, because the thinking is Black Lives Matter more, but what we're saying is Black Lives Matter too. Um, just saying that Black people need to be treated equally with other races. So that's what that is.
And
Go
also,
ahead.
just to add on to that,
Mhm.
this whole black people aren't doing them rioting, aren't doing themselves any favors and looting. You also got to understand white people stole everything, right? So this whole thing about, oh, they're stealing, they're doing whatever. How about you ask yourself like what you stole from many different groups? How about you ask yourself, yo, you know you stole this land from native people, right? You know you stole a lot of creations which were made by black people and you claim them as yours and they never got any credit. How about we start there? How about you stole people's livelihoods, not livelihoods, but you stole their bodies from Africa and you brought them here and you stole free labor for 400 years. How about we start there? Right? So before you start saying you stole, they're stealing, they're doing everything, check your history first and ask who's the bigger looter out of all historically when it comes to history. And now we're talking about history. It's white people. They stole land, they stole labor for 400 years. They used this labor, they enslaved people, and they kept them marginalized for hundreds of years. And you're getting frustrated just because a target is being rioted, which is highly insured, and they can easily build that thing back up in 3 weeks.
Yep, and it's
So,
also getting the attention of the corporate companies that have the attention of people who can enact change. So we'll see how it plays out. Right now it's
mhm.
actually too early to say how well the riots have been for creating success and fighting the racism in America. So we have to wait it out and see.
We have to wait it out, see how. But I'm happy that it's making people feel uncomfortable because you're taking notice, and that's what black people have wanted is for you to take notice. And if you're uncomfortable by it, good. We've accomplished our mission. All right, next question. Let's go.
Next question.
Let's do
Uh,
it.
I'm a white female who grew up in suburbia. We loved everyone no matter what their skin color was. My childhood best friend was a black family down the street. We called ourselves the Oreos. And as nowadays, sorry, she said nowadays, I'm guessing she said nowadays,
Mhm.
that would not be okay as 8 years old, as 8-year-old kid in 90s, we knew no better. It was a joke and it was funny. I have,
So,
we're not done, we're not done. I
oh,
have
is it still going on? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is she wrote it. She wrote a
Because I saw
uh
this space, I thought that was another question.
nah. Let me this goes on for a minute. All right. So I have never thought of anyone different because of their color of their skin. I admit I have white privilege, and not because I am a racist. It's just with it's just what comes with the color of my skin. I have never had to see a cop or fear for my life. I never had to worry about that. And as my heart breaks, and guys, I'm reading this. This is a quickly break. I'm reading this as she's typing it. This was sent straight off Messenger, so yeah, bear with me.
Yeah.
And as my heart breaks for those who deal with this every day, I can never say I know how it feels because I do not. I do not know what it's like to be judged. Before I even open my mouth, I don't know what it's like to have people clutch their purses or children closer to them as they walk by because I got too close. Yes, I know there is racism in this world, and yes, I know there's hate in the Theo world, and my heart breaks for them. But I guess my question is what I don't understand is why the violence? I personally don't understand how that makes the matters better. Yes, I agree, something has to be done, but I feel like they're tearing down their community and innocent people's livelihoods is being destroyed. I understand there's a lot of bad police, but why does that mean all is bad? The black community is judged because of the color of your skin, yet law enforcement community is judged because of the bad people in it. There are good cops as well. I don't know the answer to it. Like I said, I don't know what it feels like. So that's your question. Okay,
Yo,
Teresa. I changed the
Teresa,
name.
Teresa.
Teresa. I changed the name to Protect the Innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, we just addressed the predominant question that she asked. Is there bad cops? Of course. Is there good cops? Of course. Um, I actually have a person in my family who is a cop. Shout out to them. Um, but yeah, we kind of addressed this question. I thought it was hilariously worded question.
You
I
be
was had
reading it
to
in
read
her
it out.
voice, man.
You like that
I
accent?
like
You know what
that,
I'm
bro.
saying? My accent.
Yeah.
Um, but
So
yeah,
why the violence, Teresa?
yeah. Go ahead.
Why the violence? I mean, you have to understand, Teresa, that if you have been protesting peacefully, so historically, as I mentioned before, there's
Mhm.
been a lot of peaceful protests. That's how it started. I mean, black people just don't come out and, or any human who's upset about something, start immediately raging out. Um, that's not how it works. Historically, peaceful protests have happened, as I mentioned before. And the reason there's violence is pent up aggression over decades of things not changing. So when things don't change, how do you react? You act violent. And I'm sure a lot of people who have been angry, upset over and over and over, you act violent. Imagine someone kid on the in the playing ground at recess keeps attacking you. Yeah, you can tell them peacefully, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Over time, with you saying stop doing that, you're gonna reach your breaking point and you're gonna incite violence. And that's what's going on with black people right now is the violence is from us saying stop killing us, stop killing us, stop killing us for decades, and it's not changing. We have done everything. We have peacefully protested, we have marched, there's been breakouts and riots where people died, um,
Red
from
songs.
songs. We have done everything and anything to really get the attention of law enforcement and lawmakers that this needs to change, but nothing seems to change. So when you see them acting violence like this, is because of pent up and trauma that is built up for decades, and they don't care. We
Yeah.
don't care. And now that we don't care what happens. Like, as I said again, what's the thing? What's another thing she said? Is the black community is judged because of the color of your skin, yet the law enforcement is judged because of the bad people in it. So if if bad people keep showing up in an organization, and you have to look at what we historically spoke about with slave patrols and what they meant towards slavery and how slave patrols became modern law enforcement, you can see how this is a systemic issue of white males entering the police force and using it as an avenue to really show their anger, show their dislike, their hate for black people. And it's the best way to get away with murder because you're protected by laws. And the lawmakers are people who are also inciting that violence because the jail system is a private business. And it's also a business that's traded, it's on the stock market as well. So it's incentivized for inmates and people to go in these communities and arrest and give these arrests and incarcerate them because it fills their pockets. So even though the lawmakers are hearing this, they're like, I mean, it's filling our pockets, so let's keep doing it. And now they keep doing it. Okay, we're gonna keep killing it because I don't like black people. The less of them here, the better. So it's a vicious cycle. So we're looking for answers, and the longer this goes on, the longer you're going to keep seeing the violence, because we are at our breaking point and we don't care anymore. Uh, Collectively as a race, we've had it and we want things to change now. We're putting our foot down, and that's why the way this George Floyd case happened is because of this historic systematic racism. So there are good cops for sure, and people who go in it just to have a great vocation is in a great career. But hey, a majority of these people see it as a way to commit crime and be bad people, and they ruin it for other cops. But it takes the whole cops to really make change. So there you go.
It's the system. The system of being a cop was created, like we mentioned, out of evil. So now addressing it needs restructuring to adjust to modern society. At the end of the day, the origins of what cops believe it to be um, are rooted in good, and law and order. But unfortunately, the system that is created around it, the system of having to meet quotas at the end of the month and leveraging poor communities to meet those quotas or stay overtime just to make more money, um, and leverage the poor people and the quotas at the end of the month to get to work overtime to hit those goals so you can make more money as a cop is a flawed system, and it perpetuates the lessening of Black lives. So it needs to be changed. It needs to be reassessed and restructured from the ground up. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. Gabriel, first, in your opinion, what is the best way for white people to support the BLM movement and the allies? Secondly, I think a lot of white people struggle to acknowledge the privilege they have, and white privilege is very real. So my question is, how would you explain white privilege to a person who feels this way? All right, so we definitely answered the second question, so we're just gonna skip over that. For the first,
Well, what did they say? Like the white privilege, right?
yeah,
So how do you explain white privilege to a person who
we
feels
we
this way?
answered, we answered this like 3 times, bro.
We did, but
Yeah,
let me give another example, because there's another example
sure.
we have here, right?
Okay, go ahead.
So um, you have to see white privilege as the new normal again. So it's like products. You go to the grocery store, there's a variety of food options that reflect the cultural traditions of white people. That's white privilege. So white people, they move through the world with an expectation that their needs are already readily met, and people of color and Black people move through the world knowing that their needs are on the margins. So recognizing this means that that's where the gap exists, and that's why you live in a white society. And lastly is the benefit of the doubt. Positive portrayals of people who look like them on the news, on TV, and shows and movies. It's all white. They're treated as individuals rather than as a representative of a stereotyped racial identity. And they're more humanized and given the benefit of the doubt. So they receive compassion, and Black people don't receive the same compassion as well either. So that's what the white privilege that you get, and people, that's the best way I can really show you, is everything is catered to you. Going back again, there's a hair care aisle and you expect the hair care products that are fit for you. But if you have a different hair care, like us as Black men, it's we go to the ethnic aisle. So imagine that's the new normal for you. That's how you live, and you expect things to be ready for you. The hair gel, it's there for you, but there's no Black hair gel. You have to go to the ethnic aisle, or you have to go to an ethnic store. So everything is catered for you because you're white. And this is what that privilege you're living in is. And that's how you recognize that white privilege.
Nice.
Yes.
For now, what are the best ways that people can support the BLM movement? So in the description, we're gonna have a resource for you that has donation links, that has terminologies, books, podcasts, movies, TV shows to watch that can help you unlearn the teachings that you might have been taught and it could be affecting your life and assisting in being a part of the BLM movement and to be an ally. Three main ways you can support the BLM movement or just Black people overall is one by Black economics. That means, like we mentioned earlier, extending your network to Black people, showcasing Black businesses, and putting your dollars towards Black businesses. Number two is supporting Black art. Art is a representation of the time, and art lasts a lifetime, more than a lifetime. There's still art in museums now that have lived on for generations and generations. Supporting Black art, as low barrier as it may sound, actually makes a huge difference in supporting the thoughts and the nature of society. So supporting Black art is a huge one, and creating a mass culture around the art makes a strong difference and increases the value of creatives' lives. So, for instance, because of Basquiat, there is a culture in New York to this day that is people looking for the next Basquiat or the next artist that can portray society in a positive light. Now, moving forward, another option to support Black people is opportunities. If you see opportunities that match a creator that you know, stand up and pass the opportunity to someone that you know of has melanin, that is a Black person, that is a proper suit for that role. Providing opportunities is a great way to support the BLM movement. Anything you want to add on?
I think that's everything you can do. Um, it starts from supporting us and supporting our businesses so we can hire more people and build on top of what we already have, because we need more other people like spending money with us so we can grow our community, we can hire other people, and we can economically grow because we're far behind, and understanding that is the first step.
Most definitely. Now, Becca, yeah. Actually, just make up a name. What name would you like to call this person? Anything come to mind?
Katie. Let's call her
Katie.
Katie.
All right,
Katie.
boom. Katie, I'd love to hear you discuss tokenism, why it's offensive, and how to reframe questions to further discuss, or rather, to further discussion, sorry, rather than throw up unintended walls. I hope this is taken in the spirit in which I'm reaching out in love, heartbreak, and truly wanting to be a better ally. Also, I do truly want to know where my donations will be best served, who is doing the most good with the donations being received, or where can the money do the most good. Owen, have you had a chance to donate?
Not yet. I mean, I'm overcoming the worst of the worst of like the feeling. So my focus this week is to donate, to petition, and uh, I'm more focused on the things that economically move Black people. And one of the things is a 15% initiative. So allowing big businesses, Whole Foods, Targets, to dedicate 15% of their shelves to Black-owned businesses. But this week is where I plan on donating, which I will donate a good amount of money. But yeah.
Awesome. So tokenism. For anyone who doesn't know, tokenism is picking one specific person or a small amount of people to join a group of white or non-Black people to meet quotas. To prove its diversity, but in actuality, it's not. It's because it's one person to meet a quota, and most of the time, that person is not in a role that can contribute to change in that corporation. So tokenism, man, tokenism is definitely been real, and I've witnessed it. I've gotten chose before and had to discover that I was a token and walked my way out. Um, and it's an unfortunate but fortunate situation, because even with tokenism, sometimes when you do have that seat at the table, you can leverage that seat at the table to bring more people in, and you can leverage it to, um, have change in the business you're in. So it's a weird spot to be in. Oh, and have you ever been a token?
Oh, of course. Being working in startups, I'm in tech, so a lot of these companies, there's not a lot of people that look like you. So you're the one black person that can say, yeah, at least we're diverse. We have one black person, but it's so uncomfortable, man. It's so uncomfortable because you got to move differently. Have you seen the SpongeBob meme where he's standing beside a wall and then it's like he's taking a break and he's kind of like it's like he's dodged someone and he's taking a break. He's like, damn, I can't believe I got away from that. It's like for black people, black men and women, being the only black person in a white space, it's tough. There's a lot of things. I think we touched upon it before, but you got to move different. As Alex said, code switching. And I've been a token black guy before. I've been a token black guy in school growing up in Sarnia, Ontario. So, we're the only like handful of black families in the city. So being the person who white people refer, I have a black friend, I was that guy. Like, like they don't know anything. They live in a white space and they have that one black friend. I was that guy. So I've experienced it from all levels, from the work level and to a school level too. And yeah, it's just a way to fill out the diversity quota, as you said, Al.
Yep, yes indeed. All right, moving on. All right, and this one I'll name Lizzie.
Like Lizzie
I have a
McGuire.
big Lizzie McGuire. I have a big question. As an entrepreneur, I've been spending a lot of time the last few days thinking of ways our brand can support the cause, something permanent and meaningful. I'm wondering what kinds of things small brands can do in addition to being an ally and showing support. I ordered a bunch of black wire to make these rings, and I'm going to offer them for free for people to wear as a symbol of support. Also, going to include a black square sticker. Again, a very small but meaningful indication for people to show they are an ally. I'd also like to develop an onyx collection that all profits will benefit a cause. So you need to choose one or a few. Onyx is a really cool black stone that represents transformation energy from negative to positive.
Mm. I'm all about positive energy, bro. You know that.
I'm about positive energy, but I don't know about no onyx stone.
I don't know
uh,
I don't know what an onyx stone is. Can you like educate me
Onyx
and also
stone, it's like a
educate
it's
the
like a
listeners?
stone. It's like a jewelry piece. It's a jewelry business.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, all right, so for this, I'll create a jewelry line, and have a black square sticker. Oh, matter of fact, we didn't touch on that. What do you think of the black square sticker, man?
Oh shit!
The black
Oh my
squares on
god!
Instagram. Let's talk
Ross
about that.
Ross
What do you think
Clark,
about
freaking
that?
black square. Yo, okay. The thing about the black square, um, first and foremost, I want to applaud everybody who posted a black square. I mean, it showed that you really cared, and you really are, you know, being an allyship with black people. But I just felt as if it was a quick way just to really post something. And my friend Simi tweeted something that I totally agree with. Let me read out her tweet. She was saying that she says, fine, I'll just say, if this black square is the one and only thing you've posted, I'm judging you. Doesn't seem genuine, seems more of like a guilt post with a dash of FOMO. And that's how I feel. I feel like a lot of people, I saw a lot of people, my friends, people I know, who they did not say shit the whole week, did not say anything with regards to Black Lives Matter or anything like that. They just posted a black square, said Black Tuesday. And it's just a way just to say, I did my part. I reached my solidarity quota. All right, time back to movement. And
Whatever.
then
Mhm.
this other, my one of my favorite Twitter uh, friends, his name is Mr. Sticks. He's like, so Tuesday has passed and we're still black. So to everyone who wanted to play ally yesterday, I hope you keep that same energy for yourselves, your peers, your employers, and your families, because our oppression isn't a trend. This is a day-to-day reality. Understand that. And that tweet like went viral, right? So one thing I hated about it is it became a trend and just said Blackout Tuesday. But it would have been so much more powerful if people actually used their voice and actually were angry. Let's say when a dog dies, or there is a, what happened in Paris. When white people have some tragedy happen, they all come together. They come together, like the support, they change their Facebook photos and everything like that. And they speak about it in such passion. A lot of people, and white people, I'll give you credit, you did speak up, but there's a lot of people who just felt like, let me just toss this up as a way just to not miss out on this and not be seen as the person who didn't post a black square. It was just such an easy thing to do and just say Black Tuesday. And you got your ratings for that, you got your brownie points, and that was that. So I want
Overall,
to, yeah, overall, I want to see people keep that same energy in places where you're not being seen on social. That's where the change is going to be. This whole thing right now, like a lot of people are getting on board, but who knows if it's going to stick? Who knows if it's going to be something that is persistent, where people notice these things and say something, and not something that now there's a lot of social pressure. You're kind of caving in and retweeting some things and just saying Black Lives Matter, but like actually voice out your thoughts, talk to your friends and say, hey, I'm going to collectively bring my friends together. We're going to talk about how we can help Black people, how we can use our platform. If you're a writer and you predominantly cover, and I saw this too, a lot of Raptor writers I follow, they write about the Raptors and basketball. Like, you make money off Black athletes. And then the week where the Black community, the people, the group that you make money off, you don't say shit. And then they got the pressure from people, and then they start tweeting some stuff when it's like days later. But you know what I mean? It's those type of things. And those are the type of people I'm talking about. They post that black square and they feel like they hit their solidarity quota.
So overall, do you think it's a net positive or net negative?
It's a positive, where I feel like this is the most we've had non-blacks participate in a movement which was really about a Black man or woman dying from being murdered by police, which I really love. But overall, I still feel as if like it's an in between. I'll give it like a B minus, I'd say, because I don't feel like as if people really truly voiced out how they felt. They just kind of did it just for not missing out. So it's like a quasi net positive, I'd say.
Yeah, I can agree. I think it's a net positive. I think right now the follow up is needed. Is what's uh, is the necessity. The only time I think we saw something similar to this was with Fire Festival, where he made, I forget the guy's name.
Bobby
Um,
McFarland.
yeah, whatever his name is. He had all those models, tweet or sorry, post the orange square on Instagram that went
Yeah.
viral and had everyone inquiring about the orange tile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or square. And what he did was smart is that he had the follow up. He had the call to action to join the Festival and actually take part. And that ended up selling out the festival. That was one of his core marketing campaigns. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I
So
think
that's
that's what's
so if
missing here is the follow up.
it's a follow
Putting on the marketing, turning on the marketing brain.
the
Uh,
call to action, bro. Like the call
call
to
to
action.
action exactly is the follow up. And so what was funny is that actually a lot of these questions spawned from the black tile, where I asked people, like, hey, I noticed you post the black tile. Do you have any questions? You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's what warrants a lot of people to talk. So I think having a follow up, a call to action now. You've posted the black tile, okay? Now do this.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it as a top of funnel, going back into marketing, a top of funnel action, or you have someone do something small to end up with a bigger change,
Mm-hmm.
or to convert them. So now they realize, like, a lot of people that were in the middle posted this tile to uh, fit in, have the FOMO, like you said. All right, now repost a story of Alton
Barack
Sterling,
Ob- yeah.
Barack Obama. You know, now let's keep the same energy going. Now that we have this, I think if we can continue the follow up, then it's a net positive, and it only can go up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that weren't watching it are now watching it. Some of my clients that have Instagram feed that were blank before, because of this, now have a black feed. So now they're more aware of what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
in terms of awareness, it worked. It spread awareness. Was it surface level? Yeah, it was surface level. But all the times you need surface level to start and bring people down the path.
Yeah.
So if we can follow up correctly, I think this can be actually a smart campaign. But
Mm-hmm.
right now, that's my main issues. All right, can we follow up correctly?
Yeah, I think right now we got gas, right? We've
Yeah,
never had gas like this before,
yeah.
right? Right now we're running on F before we were running on E because it's
Hmm.
the same thing over and over. So I think right now there's a window which exists, and we got to really capitalize on this window with everybody feeling the emotions they're feeling right now and drive them towards now, hey guys, now we got your awareness, like in IDA in marketing, attention, interest. What's the D stand for again?
Decision and action.
Decision and action, right? So now we need to make a decision on where they can go and then drive it to action. From that action, I think we're gonna get some results because we also got to give white people some slack on this. This is the first time they're doing this, and as we covered before in the show, they're not becoming aware of the privilege that they have. So now they're just kind of waiting for us to guide them, and guiding them is it's on people like us having this conversation and using our platform to really direct them to resources that exist where they can take that action.
Most definitely. All right, so we didn't even answer the question really. So, in addition to being an ally, how can she show support? All right, so with her business, I'd suggest not taking this route of having the onyx bracelet and or ring as her Black Lives Matter collection, even if it's for free. I would suggest partnering with a black jewelry designer. I would suggest opening up her network to people of color to give them opportunity. Um, an example of that could be teaching somebody how to use Shopify if she's on Shopify. An example of that could be um, showing somebody who wants to be a jewelry designer um, how to create jewelry, how to um, I guess, make purchase orders, and I guess the lessons behind the jewelry designer so they can have that knowledge for themselves to operate their own business. You know,
Mhm.
if you can't give or buy, teach.
Mhm.
That would be
Great
my
point.
suggestion.
That's a great point, man, because I also saw celebrity jewelry designer Ben Baller. He
Hmm.
tweeted about 2 weeks ago saying, I don't see any black jewelers in the business. And people were saying, you know what? This is your opportunity since you are well known to mentor a up and coming jeweler who wants to be a jeweler, showing them the ropes and providing them with access to different places which they cannot have access to because it's not a really black space. So I think what she can do is simply what you said, bro, which is great.
Yes, yes, yes. Next question. We answered this one already. Greg asked, "What's the root of racism?" We answered that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pete asked, "How do you think the Black community, for that matter, of all communities, will respond to if the jury doesn't find him guilty of murder to an intentional murder?"
Man, if so,
Oh shit!
so if that happens,
Yeah. Oh
um,
man, it's just gonna get real.
shit's gonna get real, like legit. Uh, when we say all hell breaks loose, like we'll legit
Yeah,
see
I
all
think.
hell breaking loose, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Black people are going to. It's gonna be an actual race war. I
You
I
think so?
believe.
That's what you think?
Man, think about it. Like, imagine this. It comes out again, and how imagine all that anger and tension built up and it results in those results. I would feel some type of way, man. You know, I would, I mean, from us, from here in Canada, it's so hard to know what's going to happen because, like our stuff is, we're protesting, but it's still peaceful in a way. But areas where there's been some rioting and everything that's going on, you'll see that 10x immediately. Um, it's gonna be us versus them. That's what's gonna happen.
Unfortunately. Um, yeah, I don't want to think about what happens if he's not, if he's found not guilty. I'll put it like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
what you think becomes true. So let's think positive and think of
exactly.
him
Let's think
getting
of him.
justice instead of thinking the worst case. So because we don't want that at the end of the day, and we don't want to
Exactly.
witness that because it's just gonna be bad.
All right. This person asked, your thoughts on a new tax relief and subsidized slash free higher education for impoverished African Americans as a form of restitution. I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it. Especially now, I think this is the easiest time to execute that because the programs can be given to people for free, whether it be online programs or having subsidies for teachers, or grants for universities where they can have um, free tuition, free schooling, free courses that are relative to specific niches that they want to get into. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, I feel like that is a great opportunity. Um, at the end of the day, like it's a great step, but we all know what's most important with restitution is reparations. I think every Black person would love to see that happen because that will be $1 trillion payout to Black people, and that's what matters the most because they're older people who've seen the worst and they got nothing from it, and they live with that mental trauma for years. So education is great, but let's think about what's important here is we still have a bill on building America, and that is in the trillions of dollars, and that needs to be paid up. And it's a past due bill, which we're still talking about getting it paid, but that will solve a lot of things, a lot of things, because when that is paid out, we can actually catch up economically and start building our own things. Now that we have that funding, we can actually go out and buy land and have ownership and get our own systems going where we don't have to be marginalized anymore. Still, attitudes they're still going to exist, but having that money distributed among Black people in America is going to do so much. And once that happens, education isn't a problem because now we have access.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question. What are the top three things Black people want to change, like at a tactical level? How will these be done, and what are Black people's thoughts on the solution they want to see? First things first, I just want to say I'm not the spokesperson for Black people.
Mhm.
I am not the mind behind uh, the method of
The
everything.
the black ambassador.
The black ambassador, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Please don't put me there. We're not claiming to be that by any means necessary. We're not that. What would like to see, not what black people like to see. I like to see economic change, education change, and law change. Those are my three personally. Laws, I'd say harsher laws for or policies for police that avoid due process and kill somebody. Now that we have body cams, you can easily attest to somebody not following proper procedure, like shown with how many. I'm trying to like think of a specific name, but then somebody came to mind. Um, like with Mike Brown, like with George Floyd, like with so many people. Um, yeah, I don't even want to get into all those names. It's gonna make me sad now. But yeah, having actual policy in place, and for economics, I'd say specific grants, and opportunities for businesses. You know, I would say putting forth actual incentives for black business, you know, incentivizing them to start, and incentivizing them to continue. If they fail, or making bankruptcy easier to apply for, so they can rejuvenate their business and get back to where they need to be. Yeah, that's kind of like a high level thought process on my end. What do you think, Owen?
I think those are great things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Those are great first starting points. To add to that, I echo the same feelings. I'd really want to invest in black neighborhoods and black schools.
Yeah.
First and foremost, investing in black neighborhoods, this means actually the government really getting behind black neighborhoods and black leaders and investing by building better schools, building better housing. Because a lot of what's going on right now is a lot of what you see is gentrification. A lot of black neighborhoods, a lot of them are being pressed out, and they're bringing things that they're destroying these neighborhoods just to build up a Starbucks, just to build up a shopping center, and they're destroying all that. So I love to see policymakers and funding going towards reconstruction of black neighborhoods and putting the right funding, the right systems in place to really help black people flourish and have the access to education, funding, and most importantly, healthcare. Healthcare is a big one, especially for black women too. Black women are the group of women who they don't get their needs really attended to. When a black woman says that they have pain issues, it's treated as if like, hey, they don't really bother tending to them. Pregnancies for black women too. These are things that they don't really look into. So a lot of women who are black giving birth, there's a chance of them dying. So investing in the right healthcare system in these areas and neighborhoods where black women are at is going to be important. And lastly is the reform and the police. If something needs to change from that level, if it's reform some type of way, or how people become police, because we have to look at how do you become a police officer compared to being a doctor, right? Being a doctor, you go through rigorous schooling to become a doctor, but then to become a cop here in Ontario is like police foundations, and then a couple more things. You do some gun training, but they don't really look. I mean, I know they do psychological training, but they don't really do a deep background check of why, these men and women are, right? So doing that is going to be a big thing. And then finding reasons. Do you really need a gun to be a cop? Right? Like all the things that you do,
I'd say
is there,
so.
you need a cop, but like, is there a reason to use the gun? If there's a gun being used, I think if it's used, it's, like, it's something that needs to be looked deep. If you really had to shoot that person and there's a body cam and everything, there needs to be laws and rules and regulation placed upon gun use for police officers. Right now, it just feels like it's like a free for all. And the excuse they use behind it is, I was fearful for my life. But then you look at the camera and there's like nothing to be fearful for. Like Philando Castillo, how are you gonna shoot a guy and he's in his car? What is he gonna do to you? And he's there with his kid and his wife. Stuff like that is gonna make a huge difference.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, and that wraps up our questions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us throughout this ride. We appreciate you. I hope you learned something. I hope you gained more knowledge. As Victor is wrapping up, make sure to follow us on Instagram at 24/7 Hustler. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at 24/7 Hustlers, on Facebook at hustleovereverything.co, and our website, hustleovereverything.co, where we have merch and our email newsletter called the 24/7 Hustle, where we have a look into the news through an entrepreneurial lens covering sports, music, and culture. It's a great email. We already have around 3,000 people subscribed to our newsletter. It's a beautiful thing. So make sure you subscribe and check us out. Is there any other housekeeping items, Owen? Oh, a link in the description. If you like to support our Black-owned business, you can hit the link in the description below and check that out. Any donation, we'd be grateful for your support. Thank you very much in advance. And lastly, once again, the resource includes books, donation options, terminology, shows to watch. Everything you need is going to be in the resource below, so make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah. And also, we, as a business, to support us, we sell a lot of great products, a lot of clothing, sweaters, t-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, bags, a lot of hustle items, whatever it is to show your support and what we're doing. I would really love to have that support and just sharing. I think, we spend a lot of time creating this content and everything we do. What can really help us is just sharing that content out with people and just buying our product. We're not begging you, but we strongly ask for you to look into it and just support, because it takes some time to really get this stuff out, and we'll definitely appreciate your help by supporting that and sharing this podcast as well, because this is a conversation we need to have, and we had this conversation, so we'd love for you to share it as well. If it helped you, it can help someone else as well.
Most definitely. If you posted the black square, share this conversation. Most definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Alexander.
I'm Owen Osinde.
And this is the Hustle Over Everything podcast.
We'll talk to you soon. Peace out.